Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Archangel 15 and my ongoing Theory of Everything presentation series. This is part 10, video 1. There'll probably be 2 or 3 videos to this, so please stay with me in my entirety. I plan on covering a lot of really interesting stuff. A very special, exclusive video for you today. I'm going to touch on spiritual alchemy, alchemy in general, and occultic framework of ceremonial practices. And this is stuff that could easily get me killed. I recently just tried to post my first video that I'd already shot and done, and it was deleted, and the upload was deleted as well. So this is my second attempt at this. I want to put in there that, by watching this, you agree not to take legal action against me. This is for entertainment purposes. If you do not like what I'm saying, please just discontinue watching immediately. Again, by watching this, you agree not to take legal action against me or any of my presentations for that matter. So today is January 1st. January 1st, January 2nd is a very special day on the occultic calendar. Many people think that the Earth is closest to the sun in the summertime when it's the hottest, but it's actually January 2nd, I believe, is where the sun is the closest to the Earth, which if you're like into the whole Illuminati stuff or just the worship of the sun, big aspect there. To clarify, the term alchemy is a very broad term by origin. The definition of alchemy is basically like kings and queens and like higher up people would hire scribes and like chemists, noblemen to essentially attempt to turn base metals such as lead and mercury into gold. Gold, if you were able to do it, mercury would probably be one of the easiest ones to do it. It's right next to gold on the periodic table of elements. Whether they actually could do this or not, your guess is as good as mine. I'm not going to elaborate on that, as to like what I believe with it. But there's a deeper channeling of spirits to obtain this. And the term is, like I said, a broad-based understanding and meaning for the purposes of our presentation today. And it gets into the divine and the esoteric and spiritualism. And like there's actually people that were killed in the past for practicing alchemy. And today, we're not going to concern our quest into, creating gold, but rather regarding parapsychology and psi, psychic phenomenon. If you understand parapsychology, I've talked in the past about it. There's many people that do definitely have special abilities. I can tell you this is like true. They don't want people to know this. I truly believe it's a gift from God, and it can have good uses or bad uses. The Bible talks about the angels and the fallen angels and the gate of the fallen angels. The book of Enoch talks about Mount Hermon in Syria. Basically, God cast down the fallen angels and Satan on Mount Hermon, and they gave them 1,000 years to where they had dominion and control over the earth. And after that 1,000 years is up, the second coming of Christ and/or the Messiah will take hold and instill basically the third temple and create order amongst all nations. And you get what I'm saying. And the last scene of the movie The Devil's Advocate, which was ironically filmed in Donald Trump's apartment, talks about this whole thing with Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino and this big battle of free will. Whatever date that is that the triad comes to an end and the 1,000-year reign discontinues, your guess is as good as mine. I personally believe it's rapidly approaching us, and that the fallen angels know this, and that their time is running nil. As I write these words last night, it was New Year's Eve. My Christ luminary flickered like wildly as I was writing this. Kind of ironic there. Definitely familiarize yourself with the Book of Enoch and the Watchers. So moving on, there's basically 3 ways to possess this divine incarnation. You can I guess that's the best way to put it, or characteristics. And I believe myself to be an expert on a few things, but this is something I feel very confidently talking about. I've done an immense amount of research, read a lot of books, talked to a lot of people, kind of done my own practicing of stuff, and just putting various pieces of the puzzle together. I really hope they don't delete this anymore and this gets posted. The first way is to come from alien bloodlines. Basically, there are angel alien bloodlines, all unilaterally connected. And the CIA knows this, and I've talked in the past about Ted Gunderson and his work with the Finders, and how he tried numerous times with like high-level senators to bring this to the Department of Justice, and it constantly would get shot down under national security. I've read the books Mind Control, World Control, and Mass Control by Jim Keith, and they're very frightening books, I might add. And it like explains avidly in there that there's like a 3-tiered system where like they had these clone pedophile or like these clone Nephilim girls, and they teach them like from the ages of like 3 to 11 like every conceivable sexual act imaginable. And they like the lower level people are like cops, agents, and people that they use to like as pawns in the game. Then the mid level is your politicians and like people of like maybe like CEOs of companies. And at the very top, the ones that run the whole thing are like Swiss banking interests, other globalist banking interests. And what they do is they get the lower level ones to have sex on camera with these pedophile rings, and then they're essentially controlled, and they own them from that point forward. And it's been going on for quite some time, and like that's why it's, I guess, classified information. So like I said, the CIA knows this. There also used to be this program called the Looking Glass, Operation Looking Glass. You can look it up. You can like basically they could tell you the answer to anything that you wanted to know, and it's using this divine alchemy of sorts. And unfortunately, I have this ability, and I've like mastered it to a certain sense, like where I could tell you pretty much the answer to anything that you wanted to know. And unfortunately, I've come to the unsatisfactory realization that the CIA, the United States military, the Italian mafia are pretty much the ones behind almost all the evil we have in the world. And it's very futile to even try to do your own psychic investigations, because it's all going to lead back to them one way or another, like the important stuff, not like who's selling narcotics on the street corner or other victimless crimes, but like say something that was stolen of value, or missing children, or somebody like high profile murders, or like investigation into deeper quandaries like mass shootings or other things as well. And like this whole thing, this notion of the fallen angels, my mother explained this to me many years ago, and basically like they use this evil, or they use these God-given abilities to create evil in the world. And like like it can be used for good, or it can be used for bad. I just gave you an example of a way it could be used for good, to like find out like who killed somebody, or like where a missing child is. Like this is my oldest alchemy book. I have it taped up, and like I'll show you later on. I'm gonna get into it later on how it works and how I use it. But like imagine if you could just have 1 or 2 words, or like a little matrix of words that could lead you to like a location, or a suspect, or a accessory, or something that would like give you a pertinent lead. And like that's a good way. And then like a bad way is like gunpowder. Like they use this to invent gunpowder, or like other war machinery, or drugs like designer synthetic drugs, or like methamphetamines, stuff like this. Like they use it for good, and they use it for bad, or even like technology to a certain extent. I believe embryology probably falls in this as well. It gets into this whole thing of cloning and all. But back to the ways that I believe that you can be divine. Okay, so we talked about the alien blood, alien bloodlines. There's like rhesus negative blood, which pretty much anybody rhesus negative is like an alien amongst like humans. Talks about in the thing with the in Genesis, I believe it is, and also the Book of Enoch, that these fallen angels like picked the like the comely woman, and procreated with them, and spread the serpent seed amongst the earth. And so I talked about also the Andrea Puharich. He's the godfather of parapsychology. I talked about this amazing man at various times in my channel. Towards the end of his life, I believe he went and just lived like with the Reynolds family in Ohio or Kentucky or somewhere. And like he knew, like that he had these beautiful, amazing gifts, and he was only able to like go get jobs with the government, never able to like use the pure fruit of his labors for like good in the world that he wanted to. He had like free energy ideas, and I guess he was just dismayed when it was all said and done. So the alien bloodlines, and there's also reptilian hybrid bloodlines. I'm B positive, which is like reptilian hybrid. AB positive, also like reptilian hybrid. Really interesting aspects there. Like thoroughbred horses, like are like they're good for like certain things, but like it's like the actual like the mixed horses that like can do everything. They can work. They can like a lot of the thoroughbreds, they get a little bit of dust on them, and they're not happy. It's like kind of interesting there. Like they're made to look pretty and do like one or two things. But in the past, I've talked about a lot of notable people like Bill Gates, Albert Einstein, John F. Kennedy, Marilyn Monroe, having this AB negative bloodline or blood type. I believe that there were many others too that were not mentioned. Um, Definitely, I've talked about how they know that Jesus had this because it was found on the Shroud of Turin. Did not mention before about how there's actually an electronegative charged image, and I mentioned this in my very, very, very first presentation, like 2-3 years ago. But like on the shroud, there's an electronegative charged image of Christ that appears, and that's how they know that there's something special about his blood, there's like power in it. So number 2 way to have this phenomenon is near-death experiences. I've talked in the past about my 2015 revelation, and I'll post links to the International Association of Near-Death Studies. But Dr. Brayson's video, Consciousness Independent of the Brain, really like brought like major closure to my life. There's like so many people that have this, these abilities, or like have had this happen to them, and they like feel like they're alien from, I guess, the rest of the human race. And it's like rightfully so, because they've like been through death's door. And like when you come back through death's door, you come back like change. Your perception of time and everything is like irrelevant. And many of these people have like hard times having relationships of substance. And like there's a high suicide rate with people that are like come back from wars and so forth. I truly believe that if they'd like expose this information to them, that it could make all the difference in the world. A lot of doctors write this off as a psychotic episode subsequent to the workings of a oxygen deprived brain. I think you can tell that like, it's not. It's a true gift from God, and there's certain reasons why certain people come back and certain people don't. Later on, and at the ending, I'm going to get into stuff about near-death experiences and talk about hypothetical stuff, and you'll see, like how it's a miracle. No other word really to put it. So reincarnation is definitely real. It challenges immediately many people, Christians' beliefs, to be honest with you. Like a lot of Christians don't want to hear it, but like there's people that have come back undeniably that can play the piano or like another instrument, or could speak like a whole other language, or had vivid accounts and memories as if they were somebody else, even talking like they were somebody else. And it could have been like a kid from America, like being born like, or come back as like an Asian kid. It's really, really interesting how it works. And so number 3 way is like, okay, so in addition to this is kind of like a corollary to the near-death experiences, but right before somebody endures a traumatic experience or occurrence, it's said that like their spirit leaves their body to like save them from the trauma. An example of this is like, say a car accident where you almost get hit, or like a bullet whizzes by your head. Or classic example is rape. Like say a young girl or a young boy is raped, and like it's almost like to like save them, like God like takes their soul away, and like maybe another one comes back, or like an incarnate aspect comes back. Really, really interesting there. I also believe that like just through like practicing of certain spiritual worship or spiritual things, that you can also attain this. And another one, it's kind of like I threw this in there myself, is the ocean. Like just if you spend a lot of time on the ocean and the waves, there's something very, very special just about it. Like I have like a friend of mine that I used to fish with all the time, and I almost feel like I have telepathy with him, just like from like being on the water so long, like constantly, like fishing. It's just weird. So a bullet, like I said, goes by your head, and like just understand it, like it's like a shroud, or like I can't, you get the point. So before I move to the heart of my presentation, I want to stop and explain, at first glance, this a whole notion of the occult would appear to have like a satanic foundry. There's like a way to do it in that nature, and this is how the elites do it. They embrace like the satanic element. But there's another way that I'm going to show you that embraces like a bigger picture of like understanding that God and Satan are like basically derived from the same force, and it's like God is above all, and that like it's our power and ability to choose, which diametrically opposed force will domineer our life. I'm going to explain this, in time. But like God and Satan are like, it's like Star Wars, like this black and white, these like opposing forces that like God allows, like I said, to have like, the evil forces to have their place. But then like they believe that once the Messiah comes, like I said, it's going to like end this whole need for like the negative energy. But like I can tell you, like there's no way that there's going to be entire peace amongst all nations in the world without like a few people that know that they're the bad ones that are going to be painted as bad, and it's just going to have to be that way. It's like the Battle of Armageddon. So, like I said, know that God is above all, and this whole Luciferianism worship is like basically the whole heart of the Freemasons. I never mentioned them a lot, and it really wasn't by my like design of this presentation, but it like puts things in perspective. A lot of these people that are like Satanists that go to church and play the whole front like they're like upright people, but you get what I'm trying to say. So it also gets into this notion of the Trinity. We have Father, we have Son, and we have Spirit all into one. And like it really is truth to this. And it's the Spirit that transcends. It's the Spirit that goes both ways. And this is not to take anything away from the persona of Jesus Christ. The Bible mentions 3 levels of heaven. Other books I've read on this as well. I truly believe that the way to attain the highest level of heaven is through the salvation through the blood of Jesus Christ. I consider myself to be saved, but there's a much bigger picture. And, God gives us our brains for a reason, to continuously pick up these pieces of the puzzle and to question things so that eventually we lead back to him, and we know that, we're justified in our beliefs. A lot of people die without ever knowing this information that I'm telling you. And some people may have an issue with that. Like, I'm putting out too much out there, and it kind of destroys this notion of faith, especially when you incorporate the near-death experiences and the near-death phenomenon, which I've incurred that as well. So there's a term known as pure consciousness. I intend to elaborate on this much more at the end and embrace it in my final lecture. But pure consciousness, understand this. And like basically our minds should always be fixed on God. Like, we get like, with our society, there's so many other influences that like try to take us, can basically control us, through drugs, through sex, through movies, through technology, through our jobs, through just peer influences. And I could go on and on and on. And this is how they steal people's free will. But ultimately, we have free will. And like I said, it's much. I truly believe, like I said, like that they want to embrace this persona of Christ, like this man that got nailed to a board, or like killed. When like the truth is, our Father in heaven and his angels are like they carry a sword of fire, and at any given time they could cut you down to the ground. And like there's a certain paradigm that's breached when like humans cross a certain line, and it's no longer acceptable, in the eyes of God. I truly believe that our God is a God of forgiveness, but there's a certain point of like just certain things that are irreprehensible or like not excusable. Like worship of other gods is like a big one. Moses made this. If you ever look at Moses made a fiery the fiery serpent, or like a bronze serpent. This is a little one I've made out of copper. But like the people like loved, like this thing had certain power to it that Moses made, and the people started worshiping it, and like God condemned them and like basically cut them down for worshiping this serpent. Kind of interesting thing there. I've been practicing many forms of spiritualism for about 5-6 years now, and I want to briefly mention a point about paganism. Before there were any, like, okay, so years ago, there's a cable guy that came here. I think his name was Ethan, and he said something about like this term known as atavism, and like like basically before organized religions. Let's go back thousands and thousands of years. There was like a hunter-gatherer nomadic society where people like were more like basically everything was all about having food, having clean water, having a shelter, staying warm, and providing safety for your family. And like that was like the basis of life. And like you can see where like certain spiritual elements of like birds of prey would come into it, or like the Native Americans had the happy hunting grounds. You see a lot of like this paganism stuff has like like this is a coyote pelt from many years ago. I didn't kill it. I bought this at a show. So if you ever been to Kazakhstan, parts of rural Ukraine, Russia, and other places as well, there's like this culture that like they're really big into this. It's like very similar to the Native Americans, and it's like nomadic quest that like basically transcends the need for organized religion. And like at some point in time, a hierarchy or a kleptocracy took hold, and people of power and stature realized that creating a structured religion was a great way to divide and control people. This, like has created borders and wars, greed, and other tumultuous endeavors that God, whoever he or she is, would most certainly not approve of. Believe that atheism is definitely, I believe also atheism and nihilism are not the answers. From nothing comes nothing. I've elaborated in depth about the Bible and how it's incomplete word. It's distorted, contorted by nature. There was Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic. There was stuff that was omitted. There was stuff that was added. There's various interpretations. I can tell you that the prophecy is upon us, and the prophecy is the real working word of God, and it's like playing out. And they don't want like future prophets, and this is why they try to steal these bloodlines so that they can like take them and control them to like try to thwart any future prophecy that will emerge. And in the world today, there's only like a couple countries that stand up against this, and like it's like the ones that they make look bad that are the good ones, and the ones that we think are good are actually the bad ones, believe it or not. You can understand how much this power is worth more than any money could ever put a price tag on. We have free will to accept or reject God's word, to believe whatever parts of it we want. It's never too late to ask God or Christ to be your savior or to ask for forgiveness. But again, this is within reason. There's certain things that are just not acceptable, like worship of other gods, putting other gods before him. It just, he will not go for that. There's too much to go into here, but there's a term that's known as hermeneutics. And it basically is hermeneutics means the art of interpretation. You could take like 5 different Bible scholars, devout Bible scholars, preachers, whatever, even, poets, and let them read like 3 different verses, and each one would give you like contrasting views of their interpretation. My mother talked about like when you get into Bible study, there's like different levels. There's like the bread portion and the meat portion, like understanding. And like very, very few people ever get to the meat level of like true understanding. It's like an incarnate aspect. Like I guess it only comes through years and years of practicing this. And some people would never get there. So please look up, like I said, understand like there's other places in the world that like basically are into this whole paganism type thing, and it's not all bad, and they're not heathens. There's a couple bands that I really like that embrace it. Russian bands, Arcona. I love this band, Arcona. Masha Scream, this lead singer, really, really cool. Very talented. Another one's Veden Collad and Laboratorium Piesny are great examples. Beautiful, beautiful culture. I showed you the coyote thing, like feathers, other really interesting things as well. They were real big into like falconry and hunting with and birds of prey. And this went on for thousands and thousands of years before, they decided to organize religion. And, the whole thing with like having to pay your money, 10% goes to the church, like that didn't apply then. And like, or you're going to go to hell or something like that, or like an indulgence of sorts. So like, I talked about the music. I can't emphasize this enough. Chants, really, really big thing, like Gregorian chants, very special there. The hymns, huge, huge, huge conspiracy. There used to be like beautiful, like Amazing Grace, Blessed Assurance. I'm not going to go into all of them, but they removed, if you go to churches, they removed all the old hymns. Some may say it's because people were tired of singing the same stuff all the time. Maybe that's partially true, but they have all this new world stuff, and like they knew that there was healing power to those hymns, like literally healing power. And it's really, really sad, and like you can't even search them on the internet. Like the songs, like it's like that deeply suppressed old hymns, like Southern Gospel, like oh my gosh, the best. So this taps into the Akashic record as well. Like I talked about the aetheric plane and how the Akashic record is stored on the aetheric plane. Side note real quick on churches, pretty much every single church in this country is infiltrated by like evil forces. And it's like really sad. Like it's like 1 or 2 families control every single church in this entire country, basically. And like anybody that's good and tries to speak real revelatory stuff gets like they'll get like ran out of town or blackballed or blackmailed or they'll cut off your funding, or threaten your kids. Your wife will magically die of cancer or something. So I pounded the table about the Akashic record. Einstein had a love affair with a violin he called Lena. Really interesting there. I believe it. I don't know if you knew how to play it or not, but he could, get the tap into certain other frequencies and other dimensions by doing this. I talked about my little altar. I'm going to show you more, but like I have rosin. There's like something special about electrical aspect of rosin. James Clerk Maxwell talked about it. This book looks very similar to amber. Talk about amber too. Very special energy to amber. So I prepared this yesterday on New Year's Eve. Today it's New Year's Day. Talking about the significance of that day, being closest to the sun, but also like there's this little tradition where people they go outside and or like inside, and they use noisemakers or shoot guns or basically make a whole bunch of noise to chase away the evil spirits. And like if you went outside here last night, it sounded like a war zone. There's like fireworks going off, people shooting guns, all kinds of stuff. Kind of interesting there. I think I just wanted to throw in. I mentioned also, like I said, this connection between God, the devil, the yin and the yang, the ones and zeros of binary code for computers, positive energy, negative energy, and just like blood types and magnetism, everything is diametrically opposed. Imagine this scenario of like, I'm God, you're the devil, or at any given time you had to be the devil and I had to be God, or I had to be God and you had to be the devil, but our forces had to be in equal opposition to each other, like two magnets, for everything to stay balanced and in harmony. I believe that there's like truth to this, and then once the Messiah comes, like in the 1,000-year reign of Christ is instilled, this will end this. And I really believe that this date is rapidly approaching us. I don't know when it will be. There's other elements like the rapture, the tribulation, the transfiguration, other things like, I'm not going to get into. It's a much bigger picture, like I said. But I believe, when 1,000-year reigns happens, like it'll end the need to have, like the good will overtake the evil, and, the righteousness will be upheld throughout all the world. And I don't think it will be, like such a wet blanket effect that people like to paint what Jesus as. Like, I really don't think Jesus was this wet blanket of sorts. I think that he was like, supposedly it's like very controversial as to like his whole persona. Like many believe that he was like an anarchist, or, he was very outspoken against like, organized religion and like structured things. And, it's very understanding why they killed him. He knew it was his place. But when the second coming happens, that's why like the record will be set straight. Now we were basically enslaved, and, we're forced to eat poison food, poison water. I've talked about this numerous times, and take poison vaccines, which you can just look at the ingredients yourself if you don't believe me. I've done presentations on all this stuff. But we have to do all that, and we have to wear our seatbelt, but we can't, take recreational drugs for the most part, or whatever. It makes you wonder, really, like, well, why they control you like this way. And it's like, I really believe that there's a spiritual element of illicit recreational drugs. Andrija Puharich talked about, he did like all this extensive work with LSD and mushrooms. There's these famous experiments for years. I've never done LSD. But like they had like experiment where they put like, give it to two people, and like one person's in a submarine or underground, under the water, and a person's above, and they have telepathy with each other. And then like this really, really interesting phenomenon with LSD. They did all these, CIA did these experiments on beaches in California where they like put it in people's drinks without them knowing, and observe their behavior. And then, the smoking of the pipe is also very sacred. The Native Americans had the peace pipe. They would smoke peyote. Kind of interesting there. South America, they have this stuff called ayahuasca. It supposedly like changes alters your level of consciousness, like where you like come back as like a different person of sorts. Marijuana a little bit, the opium and the poppy plant, really, really big there. I talked in the past about how morphine, is like the word morphine is the derivative of Morpheus, the god of dreams, and endocrine, the prefix and the suffix. Endorphins were actually discovered 100 years after morphine, And they discovered this in pigs, and they realized that it's the same exact thing that your brain makes naturally. It's really, really interesting. And endorphin is from endocrine prefix and morphine suffix. So the word endorphin is actually derived from the word morphine, and they know that it's like something your brain creates naturally. And like if you ever cut a poppy top off, there's like this spiral. It looks exactly like a jet engine. It kind of gets into symbolism. Really interesting there. Like the cone of it's like a crown. Real deep sacred stuff there. And getting ready to end here. I'm going to continue with part number 2. This or video number 2. This is part 10, video 1 ending, and then we're going to go to video number 2. I'll see you soon, folks.